Theme song for the Gear Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for episode number 46. How you going, boys?
Hello.
Bloody lovely, mate.
It's a glorious
and
Monday
you said
morning.
Boys, right? So maybe for anybody listening, you can let us know who the other boy is.
I am a man.
He's a man. Don't you see that beautiful long hair? It's a beautiful Monday morning here in Perth, Western Australia. That's what I know, Uncle Leon. But what about our guest, Mr. Plague Scythe Studios, Ryan? What time is it for you?
It is just past 8 p.m. I've been snowed in for 3 days, and I'm ready for the rain to come so I can see my driveway.
Right on. Well, welcome to the podcast. Whereabouts are you located?
Thank you so much for having me. Where am I at?
Yeah.
I'm in central Kentucky, flyover country. We got bourbon and horses. If you don't like that, then yeah, keep going.
Cool, man.
That's about it.
Keep going. Well, keep going is a bit of the theme with this podcast. We'll just keep going on with anything else. But anyone who's tuned into my channel for a regular amount of time would be familiar with Ryan. And, you know, I'm like constantly shouting him out in videos, especially for anything vaguely hard rock or metal related, because it's normally
much
like,
appreciated.
Okay, if you actually want to know something about this, go and watch the Plague Scythe Studios video on it that's like, 3 hours long and actually tells you everything you need to know. And basically, you've developed quite a reputation for, not being pedantic with things, but very in-depth actual
Borderline
gear
pedantic.
reviews.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a little esoteric when it comes to my nitpicking, but yeah, I try not to say things that I wouldn't, want to hear if I was watching a video. I mean, it's a selfish endeavor. What we all do is making videos that we think other people would like, but I try to say the stuff that I feel like other people aren't talking about, or at least aren't conveying, even if they tried to. So yeah, that's my little weird corner of YouTube.
Yeah, something I've very much noticed is normally it's like you'll kind of do a video on, say, why guitar gear demos versus reviews need to be better. And like 3 years later, everyone else on YouTube is like, hey guys, so here's the thing is it's really boring just watching paid demos all the time, and people need to be more critical. And yeah, how have you kind of seen, how long have you been doing, I guess, Guitar Gear YouTube now, and how have you seen it change, and what do you actually like to watch?
We are going on year 7 of this in a few years, which is not just my 7th year on YouTube. I've had previous endeavors that I will pretend never existed from my own embarrassment. But for what I actually like to watch, I've found that I watch less and less of the 15-minute, here's a new thing, let's play a few riffs, other than, some big landmark releases. Obviously, I've watched your stuff on the Soldano, Astro, and some of the awesome Boss effects that have come out recently, stuff that I would actually consider buying. But when it comes to gear-related stuff, I think I've been trending towards a lot of the type of content that I'm making just to see what a lot of it is just to see what other people are doing, so I don't copy that.
Right.
I've found, and maybe you've experienced this, both of you, where the deeper you get into kind of your niche of content or music creation, the more you steer away from stuff that's similar, just because, it's like a mechanic working on his own car when you get off work. It's like, I'm so fed up with this thing. And I've looked at this computer screen for 8 hours that has this plugin. The last thing I want to do is go watch another review about a plugin right now. So I don't know if you feel similarly, but that's kind of been my last, I'd say, couple years of content creation.
Yeah, I feel you, man. With music stuff, I think depending on the part of my cycle where I'm so obsessed with, let's just say, EQ or compressors or whatever, then I'll do a whole day in the studio, go home, like have dinner with my kids, and then just watch YouTube for 3 hours, watching a little bit more stuff. But that's that's a hyper focus sort of a situation there. So other times it's like, man, if I've been writing something, then the last thing I want to do is listen to another heavy metal song or whatever it might be. It's too much.
I understand. I'm the same way.
And on the topic of having to listen to things over and over and over and over and over again, you recently did a video kind of shooting out, I guess, the big dog modelers in a ridiculous amount of detail. Do you want to tell us, one, I mean, people can go and watch the video if they want to really know the findings and sort of the process there. But on the back end of that, what was the actual creation process like and the editing process like for that? How long did you spend? How mad did you go? And what have you found the reaction is after putting that one out? Because that was like, yeah, I was, when I saw it pop up and I saw the length on it, I just kind of like, I took a few deep breaths and I was like, going to bookmark that one for the weekend. Or I think I actually watched some of it in the gym just on like a bike, you know, you're just sort of like mindlessly pedaling away. So maybe the level of intensity that I felt while watching it was part of the fact that my heart rate was elevated the whole time. But tell us about that.
Oh, wow. That one was one of those videos that it was kind of a pipe dream initially starting the channel, because I kind of recapped in the video. Fractal audio was always that dream product for me growing up. As soon as I heard XFX Ultra, it was like, that's insane. I have to get my hands on one. Of course, it was kind of unobtainium until AX8 released in the second generation. And so around that time, especially, it was, okay, do I spring for something I can't try in person, or do I go for something that I could potentially find in a big box store, which at the time was the brand new shiny Helix, or the starting to age Kemper, even 7-8 years ago. So the stuff that I put in that video was very much the things I was looking for when I was cross-shopping, the big boy amp modelers at the time. And of course, since then, there's been new players in the game, and arguably there's other types of devices that potentially I should have included if I wanted to be as thorough as possible to cover the current market situation. But that was as much of a throwback concept for me, and like I said, a capstone as it was for something that's relevant. I think it is still relevant. I don't know what you guys see, but at least I would say 7 out of 10 bands that I've seen that I've been able to look at their rig have been using one of those 3 platforms. I've not seen a Quad Cortex live yet, not to say that I haven't heard it live and just didn't know about it, but it has been a Helix platform, a Kemper, or some generation of the XFX. So I think for what a lot of people are using, it's still relevant. For the actual creation of that video, maddening doesn't begin to describe it. The Groundhog Day effect, where you feel like you've done the same thing, or you've already done this, and you're like trying to make sure that you didn't already record that thing because you've recorded that same thing 3 other times on 3 other different devices. That got intense. I started recording the DIs for reamping across let's see, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 guitars, at least 8 guitars. About a year prior to that release. And you'll probably have heard some of those DIs sprinkled in other videos, because it was like, oh, I've already recorded a Strat thing I can use for this demonstration, so I'll just go borrow that one from that giant Cubase project I have going. That was a good 2-3 months of just, in between working on other videos, but okay, I'm going to sit down and learn this riff, or try to think up of something. What's a good Diesel VH4 riff? Oh, okay, here's something off of the new Tool album, or newish Tool album that I can try to learn a 13/8, polyrhythm. So do that for a while. And then came the preset creation time, where inevitably I would do some pass of like, okay, here's my Fender, here's my Marshall, here's my Recto, here's my whatever. Then a firmware update would come out, and I'd have to scrap most of that. And then you'd find out that another amp model released on the Podgo, and then you have to add that to the test suite, and maybe made this thing redundant. So I would say the back end, the stuff that you saw off camera, was absolutely the most maddening, the most draining. Because there was a lot of recording stuff that I thought I had the same cab impulse response on, because I'd changed it maybe halfway through on one device, forgot to update it on the other one. Then I'd get there and go, why the fuck does this sound so different? I know it didn't sound that different before. So a lot of corrections there, and I'm sure as a result there's some incorrect stuff in the video in terms of what the audio is, what you're hearing versus what the video shows. But overall, it should be close, I think. So yeah, that was the most insane thing I've ever put to video. I think the picture I sent you was what, 1,000 and something cuts at one point. Don't do that.
Nice. I mean, if I make more than 5 cuts in a video, I'm like, whoa, I'm really working hard today. This is putting in the hard yard. So I just keep that in my back pocket and just be like, yeah, you're not really going that hard. How, with something like that, how long of a, once you put the video out, like if I put a video out, I know something, you sort of develop a feel for what people are going to dig normally. Yeah. Is an amp involved? Does it have lots of gain? People are going to interact with it. That's sort of like why people watch YouTube, And I mean, you look at guys like, I guess Guitar Gear YouTube, it's kind of like either you're really into pedals and kind of strats and low gain stuff, in which case, like, you've got that pedal show kind of cornered the market on that. And there's a bunch of other guys who do that really, really well. Or if you like high gain amps, it's like, it's the Ola method, right? That's the template. He, there's still those videos he did 15 years ago, which is just
still
like
relevant.
Dual rectifier, metal. It's like, someone had to do this, like it's just a dude playing metal on a dual rectifier. And you sort of see, he's like obviously gone way beyond that to be an internet personality and someone who owns a guitar company. He's been very, very successful and he obviously works his ass off, but it's like a new amp comes out and it says metal after it. You're like, okay, I know what I'm going to get with this. And that's sort of a template a lot of people follow. And I'm sure for you, when it was starting out, it's like, oh, I could just do this. And, you get that like residual sort of, here's another guy who owns an 8-string who knows all my favorite Gojira riffs and Meshuggah riffs, like, cool, I'm going to watch it. And how do you, so anyway, my point is you put a video up like that, people are generally going to be into it and then you can jump in the comments and chat to people and maybe learn some things. Doing a video like that shootout, do you just kind of shut your computer down for a week and go out into the woods and just not worry about the mental fortitude it will take to sift through those comments and opinions? Because you're actually someone who has an opinion that's not just, everything can kind of sound good and what a time to be alive and guitar is nice. It's, it's a lot of the time it's quite incisive. So how do you deal, like, what is your process for interacting with your audience?
I am a little more involved in the first week or so than I probably am after a month or so after a video releases. I think I'm in the teeth gritting mode of put your flame suit on and just what happens. It's kind of the way I tend to prepare for stuff that could be semi-controversial like that. And I'm honestly surprised how cordial and civil the comment section was. I honestly felt like I didn't give much ammunition for any counter arguments. And so that probably didn't had quite a bit to do with it. But honestly, it was mostly constructive, but I've definitely had those videos where it's like, the first 1 out of 5 comments that are just like melt your brain, you're able to move on from, just whatever. It's, it's just a kind of an edge case there, kind of an outlier. And then you get 2 out of 3 comments that are garbage. And then the next 4 are just, then that's the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done with YouTube Studio for the next month or so.
Yeah. I mean, because there's obviously a lot of discussion around, creators and again, there's this thing of mental health. I remember somebody saying that term has been co-opted by middle management to just be another reason why they don't have to pay out insurance claims. Yeah. So
really,
it just kind of gets bandied around. Oh, we have a cat.
Kitty.
Something like that. For me, I obviously put a video out every single day, but I'm certainly not dependent on YouTube as like my bread and butter. It's a nice bonus on top that I earn some ad revenue and some other stuff. But do you feel like that, like having to click on YouTube Studio and checking the analytics, they've made it so easy to absolutely fry your own brain. Oh,
it's with the top matter. 10 and here's a game. Which one of these videos is the most liked last week? It's corporate drivel, but you can't help but click on it because you see that little one, red dot in the upper corner. Yeah,
I ignore the red dots. I have currently. You guys will appreciate this.
Oh my god.
666 unread messages. Wait, hey, you can't see that. Didn't show up. 666 unread messages on my phone. So,
God.
yeah. Anyway, go on.
Troy Navaban, Australian Psycho.
I can't like my Outlook, my work Outlook has like 6 unread in my inbox right now, and it's killing me, but I'm leaving them unread to follow up on them. Well, my boss is that where it's like 6,000 unread and the deleted, and I want to like pour salt in my eyes every time I walk over there.
Well, just quickly, my inbox has 22,455 unread emails. So that's sorry, everybody, if I forget to get back to you on time. I've got a couple of things to go
There
through.
really are two types of people. Hey, it's got to be
really
like
are.
inbox neutral, or I've had this same email account since I was 13. So Leon Rocks 420 is just always going to have 30,000 emails in it. Oh man,
do you know what though? Like, I unsubscribed from a bunch of like half of these emails. It's just ads from like. Honestly, fucking Universal Audio. And I finally just unsubscribed a week ago. And as a result, the last email that I received was on Saturday from Disney Plus. So there you go. It's 2 days. It's
that's so bad.
It's awesome. Anyway, sorry to derail, but that's what I'm here to do, everybody.
That's
what are we talking about? Frying your brain.
Frying your brain.
Yeah, some mental health nonsense. Yeah, quote unquote, as the corporate bosses would say.
Yeah, I mean, do you find that in the kind of grand scope of stuff that happens in your life, which is certainly no stranger to, and you've been very open about, how like the reading a negative comment on your YouTube, like having perspective on it and being able to actually step away from it and just go, oh yeah, that's right. This is just gear. These are just guitar noises. What do you do? What do you do once you've done something like that? If it's just like, the comments are just muck, do you just kind of actually go and play some guitar, or, is there other stuff outside of guitar and work that you like to spend, basically resetting?
What I found recently, I do a lot of like personal, like I guess you could call it audio journals and stuff. If like I don't feel like listening to music, if I'm driving home or whatever, just to try to like get the garbage out, where I'm not talking at someone, kind of just yelling at the void kind of deal. I've taken a liking to, and it's probably pissing in the wind in a lot of ways, but if I do get one of those muck comments, used to, I would just be like, either completely ignore it or say, you missed the point. Here's where, my counter argument to that or so on and so forth. Maybe this is, I might be a bit of a dick for it, but I have really enjoyed just slam dunking people. It's a bit of an exercise in my own writing skills, if nothing else. And not the ones that it's like, oh, I don't like that sound. It's not that. It's the ones that are, completely nasty and name calling and, getting to stupid fights with people in the comments section. So I've kind of just to show that I am interacting, and I do take this stuff to like you said, it is ultimately guitar noises at the end of the day, but I take it seriously insofar as people trust us to an extent to help them make purchasing decisions that. It's a good chunk of money we're talking for a lot of this stuff, and maybe not life-changing for any of us, but it could be a year or two worth of savings for other people. And that's something that, I don't take lightly. So, I kind of, here recently I've been kind of taking the piss and just throwing it back in people's faces when I see fit. Yeah. But then I will try to walk away and do something either productive to learn something new on guitar, or when I'm not feeling that. I think in the past, let's see, I've had this game since March. I got a PlayStation VR 2 for PlayStation 5. I got like 200 hours in Gran Turismo. It's nuts. It's absolutely unbelievable. Nice. So that's been a big cause of my downfall in guitar playing practice, I'm sure. But yeah, that's been a nice thing to step away from and enjoy.
Like Troy, you've often said as well, like take going to gigs, for example, like a local gig, see your mate's band for the 30th time. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you do that when there's like, you can play video games or watch a movie on Netflix or something? It's like,
well, coincidentally, I usually say, why would you go to a gig when you can watch YouTube? So that's really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not for me. Live music anymore. It's so loud. I did 4 gigs on the weekend, man. It was so loud. I woke up yesterday morning in a state. so anyway, it's not for me anymore.
Do that often.
Anyway, but sorry, what were you going to say, Leon?
I couldn't do that often. That's why I chose the path I did, keeping my hobby a hobby. So
yeah,
yeah, that's actually a pretty good point, and something I feel like you did a video a while ago talking about that. Basically, where I was listening to it, and I was like, yeah, this guy gets it. The idea that, you know, if you're someone who plays 4 times on a weekend, or you're somebody who literally plays guitar 3 times a week on a good week for fun, and it's a hobby, that, you know, they're both valid. Yeah. They're both like no one's experience with the instrument is really any more or less valid. It's not this kind of like moral exercise. And if you're not constantly writing the best song you've ever written in your life, then you're wasting your time. Like, yeah, if you like to play around with fuzz pedals and you have fun with it, sweet. If you like to go and play gigs on your acoustic guitar and play Ed Sheeran songs, sweet. Like, you do you, dude.
Yep.
There's no right or wrong way to do this, which I really appreciate. And I think in my mind, that's kind of sunk in where, you know, if I'm spending time making a YouTube video, or I'm spending time like trying to match the modulation rate on a Memory Man with the Axe effects, like it's all, am I feeling like I'm spending my time doing something worthwhile for me? And that's kind of all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. It's all time wasted at the end of the day. So, you know, does it make you happy? The car guys get to say, "Ooh, this vroom vroom makes me happy. I'm not trying to set the best lap time." Or, you know, the gun guys get to say, "I like the big boom on this one," and not worrying about my target grouping. So, what's the difference? We don't have to, you know, shred our heads off every day to get the most out of what we enjoy, I think.
What's hard, man? So, like, I was going to say for me, like, because of, I said 4 gigs on the weekend. That was my job. That wasn't my hobby. And if I've got a busy, like I've got 2 sessions today, a session tomorrow, I think a session on Thursday, and then in between all of that, it's just editing and doing mixing and stuff. It's just, and I enjoy music and I enjoy guitar and I enjoy love mixing and I love playing with plugins and stuff. But man, none of that is hobby time. That's like work time. And then when you go like, all right, now it's time to do something for me. I go, shit, I've got a pile of work I need to do. I have to put that aside and save that for another time, which coincidentally, that was the first week of January for me, was playing guitar for fun. So I'm through that now. I can wait another, whatever it is, 50 weeks to get back into that again.
How far through that Jason Isbell rig rundown did you get with the kids?
Yeah, that was really funny because I started watching that on Saturday night. And then I woke up Sunday morning, as I said, in a state, just like, I have to sit on the couch. And they'd already been up for a couple of hours. My partner went and had a shower, and I'm just like, all right, I just need 10 minutes. I'm just going to hit play on this Jason Isbell rig rundown because I want to see what's going on. And then I had my daughter behind the couch just la, 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 la. So I had my son sitting next to me going, Dad, da, 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 da. It was chaos. And then the thing's going, it was just so much stimulation. I couldn't handle it. I had to turn it off.
And you're just listening to, oh yeah, so like it's actually a real dumble and, you know, we play it with an attenuator. You're just like.
They don't play the dumble with attenuator. The only one they don't use. Thank you very much, Uncle.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So he did watch it. Great. I mean, that's a video and a half, that one. Like, you know, the Premier guitar, you know, I feel bad when I see, you know, Joey Joe Shabadoo rig rundown, and it's like some dude in his basement with like a Boss Katana and an LTD. It's like just rig rundown. They were so clever to coin that, and that's become a standard thing that it's okay to rip off. Really, only they do those rig rundowns properly. And yeah, that Isbell one it's awesome. Like some of the rig rundowns, you're like, yeah, these dudes do not want to be here chatting away to like some journalist, but like you can see
that's when they make their tech do it though.
Yeah,
which is my favorite.
Which is like, okay, you know, they couldn't be bothered.
This is my Axe Effects patch. It's a little different from the last time we did this, where I was using a different Axe Effects patch.
I think that's what I remember watching the
rig rundowns.
Yeah, the Shine Down one. I watched that. Speaking of VH4 tones, like I'm pretty sure he was just like, "Here's all my cool guitars." And yeah, I just use the Axe Effects now because why not? And I'm sounding great. Like I use the VH. I think it was just like I've got a bunch of patches in there. VH4, cool, no problem.
here's my signature 1 and my signature 2, which is one better, and my signature 3, which is one better than that again. And I feel like they'll be like, so here's some stuff, and they're like, oh wow, so tell me about this buffer, and then you're like, yeah, it all goes to this, like, there's an Axe-FX 3 and another backup, and they go, oh yeah, cool, so you're using the fractal. Anyway, next, let's talk about your bass player's rig. It's like, come on, dude, like, at least give us I think it was the guy from God is an Astronaut. Like, he actually did a rundown of his patch. He was like, oh, right, here it is. And I used to have all these pedals, and I just like A-B'd them with all the blocks. So I've got this like gigantic, I've got a few like reverbs and plexes and multi-tap delays and fuzzers, and I just do it all in the box. And if I have to change anything, I have a cheap laptop, and this is so much easier than my Gigantor pedal board used to be. That feels like the only time, or even if it's someone like on a Kemper or a Helix, at least they'll, kind of, I like it when they dive into those things.
Yeah, walk through the signal chain a little bit. It's all
that's
in there.
Stuff. Hey, Uncle Leon, just quickly, not to give you too many ideas, that's another YouTube, like, that's another video idea. Just call these people and like do a video with everybody walking through their fractal signal change.
Yeah.
That would be very, very interesting.
That would be amazing. So what do you do? Actually. Well, because the funny thing is, and it's normally the sort of people who watch videos like this. So I'm talking to all of you listening, but if the bias is at 60% or 63% in the second amp block that you're blending, like that kind of stuff seems important. Then the number of pro rigs for guys who play every night, they're like, yeah, I like distortion, I use the Friedman. Or I like clean sound, I just use factory patch, like the very first Bassman patch. Yeah, I know, speaking to a few people who do the pro rigs, they're like, yeah, a lot of people just use factory presets, bro. And it's like their guitar into the Bassman or the Band Commander preset, and like that's the whole gig. Backing up some country artists playing in an arena or something like that, or they really want to get crazy. It's like the Aaron Marshall preset that he put up, which
the Gift of Tone.
Yeah, I was looking at it and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Bit of Friedman, bit of Rev, like nothing too crazy. Oh, he's got pitch detune. Oh, these settings look really, really familiar.
Oh, wait, it's a library.
Yeah. Oh, this is kind of cool. I'm pretty sure he's just like pulled a bunch of these blocks from my blocks library. That's kind of sweet. So I put a video up on my Instagram. Yeah, he sort of wrote and he's like, oh, I've been watching your videos for like 4 or 5 years. Really cool to hear you actually like play through my rig. And I was like, yeah, this is exactly how I would dial this stuff in as well. It's like really, it's funny playing through that and being like, I really like the way this sounds. And then you hear him play through it and it sounds, it sounds like him, which is, it says a lot to be, there's a lot to be said about, style versus tone. Like, I think there's a video a few years ago. I can't remember if it was Eric Johnson playing through Zach's rig or Zach playing through Eric Johnson's rig. I feel like it was Eric playing through Zach's rig, and you're like, oh, that's a cool Eric Johnson tone. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, and then, it just didn't have the chainsaw of death thing happening. But yeah, let's go totally somewhere else, because you just went to Japan.
I did. As
I understand it, for work, but you had plenty of playtime there, right? Like,
I did.
Just tell us about Japan. A boy from Kentucky, a man from Kentucky in Japan.
Felt like a
Where'd
boy
you go?
there.
What'd you do?
Believe you me. So had to go see some work related stuff, but I did get the weekend to travel through Kyoto and Tokyo, and I've never been outside of this country before. Which, to be fair, it's a big country, so there's a lot to see, and I've seen a lot of the states. But 14-hour plane ride is brutal. Didn't sleep a week. I can't imagine what you guys do so often. It's ridiculous. But I was really expecting to be almost more culture shocked than I was. I'm sure it has something to do with a little bit of post, World War integration, but everyone was so aggressively nice, is the term I would use, where it's almost like, I get it. Like, thanks. We don't have to go through this song and dance. Like, respect your culture and your routine here. But yeah, you don't have to like do the triple bow and the red carpet treatment and all that. So I feel like as pasty white boy, it's like the best Asian country to start with, because it feels like Asian light. Like, there's never any point where it was like, oh, I could get stabbed right now, or there's a sex slave trade going on in the next alley over. Nothing like that. Like I felt safer there than I did in most of the places that I go to in this state. I'm a bit of a foodie, so of course all that was unbelievable. Have you two ever had sea urchin? That would be my first question.
No, I've seen it come up before, but I've never had it.
I like just off here, there's quite a few little reefs to dive on. So normally in the summer, a couple of times a buddy and I will go and we just pick them and you crack them open and you pull the roe out, and a pretty cool thing you can do with them. This sounds horrendous to anyone who, like, it's one of those things you don't explain what they're eating to them. You just let them have it.
Do it.
But it's kind of like one of those things where sea urchin tastes like the ocean, for better or for worse. It's just, that's the sort of thing. Troy and I were talking about this on the weekend about seafood.
Funny.
Yeah. Just like people who just like love mussels and oysters, and that's not really
I love
a thing.
that stuff. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
You got to move to Perth, bro. Because
sounds like it.
That's a thing. But yeah, sea urchin, that's sort of the one thing. Basically, you can use it as the salt and the cream in like a pasta sauce, and it's pretty interesting. It's a lot of effort to go to. But having it like that, I really like, because also you're not like, oh wow, this is a spiny sea animal's eggs that I'm just inserting into my digestive tract. But tell us about how you liked it.
We've got in Kentucky a thing we call redneck calamari, where you take the fish eggs out of like a bass or like an impregnated crappie or something like that. Always liked that, growing up, you deep fried or whatever. But see, and that's kind of what it reminded me of, because it is a orange, goopy, eggy looking thing. But I had it in a gigantic sushi roll the first time. And the only thing that popped in my head was like the mud vein in a catfish. It's just like, tasting like ocean is, that's an understatement. It's like you crammed the entire like Adriatic Sea into 1 square inch of stuff. And it was just like, it didn't even make me gag. It was almost just like confusion of not believing that that's what I was tasting. So I will eat anything once. I will definitely try anything. I don't care what it is. I'll try it. Wasn't a fan of that. Everything else, A+. There's a freshness that you cannot replicate over here. It was just with the seafood. Their soy sauce was like the equivalent of like a bourbon barrel aged beer. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like so. It has so much umami to it. I could have drank that by the pitcher.
Did you have I forget, actually, it was so good I should have remembered the name, but we went to a place that it's like the kind of, it translates to like dipping noodles, where you have the soba and then you have like the kind of the soup, and it's separate and it's cold, and you like dip the noodles in there. But they had this condiment which looked like pepper, but it was, again, one of those like transcendental taste things. You like grind it up like pepper, and it was obviously maybe a fermented chili or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
I got to remember what it was, but it was one of those things where it's kind of the thing. I was chatting to a mate the other day we were talking about coffee, where, you really get into this stuff, and you have to remind yourself that not every experience you have, whether it's with coffee or it's food or, gear or something like that, that not every single thing you try is going to be the most amazing thing you've ever had. Like, there's just, not everything will always be better, which is something that, hey, we fall into with guitar gear and stuff like that. We're always looking for that thing that's exceptional. But I feel like when you do have one of those experiences, it's sort of like the sea urchin thing, like, I'm confused. I don't know if I like it or not. And it takes several times. And there is that thing, I think it's a kind of documented thing where it's like, if you want to learn, if you want to appreciate a new taste or something, it's actually having like a pleasant social setting around it. So if you're like with your friends and you're having a good time and you eat something new and weird and you repeat that 3 or 4 times, basically your brain's like, well, this is good. And I'm going to associate
Pavlov yourself.
Yeah, basically. You Pavlov yourself into like digging it, which is, I mean, I've had things like that probably with guitar gear. Like Troy and I recorded an episode which will probably come out before. This one goes out just about like rectos and, you know, trying them for the first time and not liking them. But then you're like, for me, it was like being in the studio with him being like, oh, we get this sound, and you start double tracking. You're like, oh, that's the thing I've never had before. I think I like it now. And you do that a few more times and you're like, well, this is the greatest thing ever. So yeah, that's, did you get a chance to like check out the kind of used gear stuff in Japan?
We went to 2 stores, and one of them had basically every exotic amplifier I've never seen in person. I saw every one of them in like one corner. It was kind of overwhelming. Of course, every Yamaha and Ibanez model that's come out in the past 2 years was right there. Got to try a couple of the headless stuff that I hadn't played yet from a couple NAMMs past that we've discussed. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, the effects section, seeing like, you know, an axe rack, and then right under that's a Kemper, right under that's a Helix, right next to it's a Quad Cortex, right next to it's a Moore, right? It's like, okay, these guys are not screwing around. And it's just like a side alley, you know, across from a Hotel Appa. Just you know, Dietzel, Friedman's, and you know, Ubershaw in the corner, and okay. I guess this is their pawn shops. This is normal for everyone. Of course, you do the currency conversion, and it's like a time and a half of what it would be off of Sweetwater. So there's that too.
Yeah. It's I just describe it as somewhere like there's actually something for everybody in that country. You know, it's every little niche you could imagine, there's probably at least a dozen people as into it as you are. And, you know, it's facilitated there. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. This is making me want to go back even more because I went a few years ago and I just had the best time. And, yeah, you know, rummaging through bins in music stores and, like, finding weird chorus pedals that you've never heard of, and they're like $15, and you're like, yeah, well, I'd be stupid not to.
Where can I go wrong?
Get it into my body. You sort of mentioned they had all the modelers. I want to get your sort of take on some new stuff that's come out. You know, where do you see kind of new modeling stuff going? Because there's definitely this push for like basically dumbing them down and making them like smartphones.
Yeah. I think there's a time and place for it. I feel like we're entering that post-Helix phase of where everyone saw, you know, the monochrome minimalist UI and said, oh, now modeling has to look like that. And now we're in the post-Quad Cortex, you know, neural DSP app thing where now everything's got to look like that, and we know we can do tone matches, so you know everything has to be a tone match machine. Everything has to be, you know, press one button and you've got your guitar rig dialed in. And personally, that doesn't interest me hardly at all unless it can do the traditional stuff as well. I love conceptually the idea of having an Axe Effects or having a Helix product or what have you, and saying, I know I have a Marshall JCM 800. I'm going to go to the Marshall JCM 800 model and say, listen to this real amp, configure the back-end settings and the gain and the tone stack to get that as close as possible. I like that idea. What I don't like is this, you know, press one button and hope for the best like you do with Tone X and Quad Cortex, where it's completely hands-off. You have no idea what's going on in the background, and maybe it sounds exactly like it, or maybe it sounds like you've EQ'd another amplifier to death to try to make that thing sound like it. Transparency is really the name of the game for me. Even if Fractal sounded subpar, which obviously they don't, I still think I would be drawn to that platform just for being able to see what's going on and be able to change a lot of those stuff. So I'm really not terribly interested in a lot of products that are coming out as a result of that, at least from some of the new players and especially some of the spin-offs of existing gear.
Because it kind of happens in like roughly 5 to 10 year cycles. Hey, there's sort of like, hey, and we're also living in like a post-hype marketing. Like, I can't watch a YouTube video on my phone without getting in like that. Currently, it's the Neural DSP Morgan amp suite.
Okay.
Like, I'm every video I watch, you know, on my browser, I use something that blocks ads, and I'd encourage everybody to use that. Why do you want to watch ads? I make money from the ads, but also as a user, why would you?
They're garbage.
But yeah, on my phone, in the gym, it's like I want to watch something and it's like I'm just getting this same ad, and one, it's cringe, but two, it obviously works because
they wouldn't do it otherwise.
Their business model is clearly, well, if we make $10,000, let's spend $9,900 of that on advertising.
Yep.
And that's a single plugin. It's we'll sell 100 plugins and we'll make the money back. So there's also like the loudest voices, aren't always. It's kind of like YouTube, the people with the biggest impact can just say whatever they want, and people are like, oh, cool. They said this thing that has absolutely no basis in reality. It's like that sort of thing happening where now we're living in this world where it's like if you just advertise heaps and have a slick UI, people are just going to say, well, this is obviously the best thing. And I'm sure you would see that
Master
now.
Pro. Excuse me, that was a bad one.
Well, yeah, like quite a good example, right? Where, especially when it's new. Anyway, my point with this is like, in terms of actually reviewing gear, do you feel like the majority of your audience is just people who've already bought something and they just want their purchase justified by some stranger on the internet? Like, oh, I just bought a new 5150 and Ryan has a video on 5150, so I'll go and watch it. And surely at some point he's going to say it's the best.
I feel like there's that for a certain segment of like hardware videos, especially. I see that a lot with my pedal stuff, especially on the pedal head series, where it'll be, I've had this for 3 years and I thought it sucked, and I learned something here, which that's always great.
Yeah, that's
cool. Seeing like I was teeter-tottering on buying this. What I see more often than not, at least in and it's a small subset of people that actually comment. So you extrapolate this out to the whole user base. I'm not sure, but I see a lot of people that say like, I have no intention of buying this thing. I just want to see what it can do, or I want to prove or disprove to myself that either I need a real analog piece of gear, or to see how far along digital amp modeling's come along. So I'm thankfully not seeing a whole lot of just like purchase justification, at least recently. I've definitely seen it before, but So that's I think it's a good thing, which is that to me that's what you should use a review for. You should watch everyone that has something that is offering something different. You should watch as much stuff as you can if you're especially want to sink $1,000 plus into something. So not just like, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and then watch. Please tell me, internet man, that I made the right decision.
That's pretty good. I have to ask as well, listening to your clips with a Mark IV basically made me want to buy a Mark IV. What's the amp roster like at the moment for you? Because I'm also looking at Troy's screen with just, the omniscient wall of stacks and rectos and good stuff in there. What's your amp roster like, and why do you have what you have?
So nothing really has changed too dramatically since the last shootout video I did that revealed that I do indeed have a Valve State 8200 in addition to the 8100, because I'm totally insane. And as it turns out, it is a different amplifier. I've gone through basically node by node, and it's just a slightly different preamp. It doesn't chug like the 8100 does. So as much as I'd like to say one of them is redundant, I'm probably going to end up keeping both and figuring out some stupid stereo wet, dry, wet thing to do with it.
Nice.
So very much enjoying the 8100 still. I've got that one, and the RG100 on kind of like a custom load box that Dirtmonger Instruments made for me. That way I can run the line level through my Matrix power amp, which I've used for videos before. So kind of have like basically turn these into solid state pedals in front of a clean power amp, more or less, to go through my amp switcher. That's it for the solid state side. We've got still my big three tube amps that I'll never get rid of. We've got the 50 watt single rectifier series 1 still. Very much using that for some upcoming music. Got Cherry Tone Gargoyle, and of course the Mark IV Series B that you mentioned previously. And they're all amps that I can pretty much match basically one for one in Fractal firmware if I really listen to it side by side. But they're all amps, to the lesser extent the Mark IV, since that model is just absolutely dead nuts in Fractal. But there is still something about the tapering, and as you know, with the graphic EQ, how weird the tapering is on that.
Yep.
That there's something about the physical amplifiers that make me dial these in just slightly different, and then that kind of cascades with their own. I feel like these are more trebly through my load box and even my real cabinets than a lot of the Fractal stuff is, which means they're not as mix ready. But there is something unique to all of these that makes me go, holy shit, that's the tube amp kind of experience that I wanted growing up. And I feel like I could potentially change out the single for like, a Rev G or something like that. But I really don't have any gas for any new tube amplifiers of this variety. Like in terms of high gain stuff, for a tight chugga or like a soaring liquid lead, they do everything I really want them to do. What I'd like to add from here on out, honestly, is like sludgy, like a Sun Model T or a vintage Mad Amp kind of thing. Like that's the analog stuff that I feel like I'm missing, or that I can get out of this, but it's not quite that. I wouldn't mind a Sun Beta lead either. But I feel like these are kind of going to be my staple amplifiers for a long time to come, because any time I've I try a different amp model, or even I've borrowed, like the 2C Plus. I was fortunate enough to try that, the Mark III, a couple different rectifiers. I'm like, oh yeah, these could be kind of better. And then I plug into the one I've already got, and I'm like, good enough. And it's kind of like, coming home again. So yeah, I feel like if you're a hard rock, heavy metal guitar player, for me, I'm not the biggest 5150 dude. So I feel like that, that and the Mark IV can kind of be interchangeable depending on how you like your really saturated guitar tones. But I feel like you need a really pissed off Marshall sound, and I feel like you need some type of rectifier sound to just kind of like your bread and butter, and especially mixing them, of course. So that's kind of why I have those, and I think from here on out it's going to be more either esoteric stuff, solid state stuff, or hybrid stuff that's hard to find, or like I said, really sludgy, nasty kind of stuff. They probably won't even be used for my own music, but I'm insane and like to try it out.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that kind of stuff is. Yeah,
if we're speaking to the choir here, because
like, how much overlap do you reckon you have there? Like, we've talked many times, Troy. Like, your old Marshall, like, is a very, very good one, and then you've got your Recto, and then you kind of like, the Vox style thing. You've got a few different flavors, but
Look, the thing is with all this, I think I've said this before, all these amps had so cheap, like unbelievably cheap. And that's the only reason I have them, because I don't have a shitload of money. I just have I just get really lucky with deals. And once again, 500 Australian dollars for that pink rectifier. So it's at like $300 US.
Oh my God.
That 5150 script, I paid $700 for that last year, 2 years ago. The Cherrytone DC30, 500 Australian dollars. The Marshall, which is probably one of the more expensive ones, that was like, I think $1,600, and then it's been modded and stuff.
You bought that at a really good time.
Yeah, I bought that when it wasn't crazy.
$3.5 now.
But the Splawn Nitro at the bottom there, 800 Australian dollars. So
what?
Yeah, so that's why I've got stuff. The Mesa Stiletto, 800 Australian dollars equivalent.
Oh man, I came so close to pulling the trigger on one of those. I loved Hetfield's sound when he used one of those.
It's wicked, man. So again, like I've been really lucky. I would love, and it's on my list to buy some really expensive ones, but I can't really justify. Like, okay, so over here to buy, let's say a Friedman BE Deluxe, it's I think about $6,000 Australian. So I could sell all those amps for what I paid for them and not afford one of those,
Yeah.
And that would be wicked. But all these amps, I've never seen another Splawn for sale in Perth, right? There's probably a couple that come up in Australia, but I've never seen another pink rectifier. Like, that's amazing. Like, I just bought it because it's fucking pink, man. I didn't even use it for a couple of years, but I love it now. So that's really it. So it's not even, I have all the flavors taken care of. And now on top of it, it's just like, it's a hobby side as much as anything else. Like I've got 7 4x12s. Like why do I need 7 4x12s? Well,
because they're all different. They got different speakers and baffling.
Yeah, but like the last one I got, which was this time last year, cost me $125 for like a Marshall 1960A. It's like, oh my God. Well, why not? Like it had two speakers where the cones had the domes had fallen off. So I bought some glue for like speaker glue. Did that. And that was just fun, you know. And the cabinet's really beat up, so it's just kind of fun to have that stuff. So yeah, man, like it's all fun. There's hobbies, there's the job. As I've said many times to many people, I could do my entire job with like a DI and a plugin.
Yeah.
I've used
same.
like because I'm on Pro Tools, like I've used 11 like for so much stuff because it sounds really great, but people don't like it because A, they don't know how to dial it in, B, they're fucking tone snobs. But it's fine. It's like it's a completely usable sound, and sometimes it's I wouldn't say it's beaten other sounds, but like real amps, but it's enough. So yeah, but it's really fun. Like I did a lot of guitar tracking last week. I've got a lot of guitar tracking this week. The one thing about having a real amp, like you said with your Mark IV, is it's like the stuff isn't mix ready, but it's kind of an experience to create the sound and to record the sound. And when I've got clients in, it's not just pull up preset A in the Kemper. It's like even though you're effectively designing the same sort of distortion tone that you've gotten 600 times, it is a little bit different. You've mic'd the cabinet in a different way. Yeah, it is. It's fun. And I've had, weirdly enough, experiences with people where they come back years later and it's like, oh, you know, let's record guitars. And like, oh yeah, remember when we used the Vox and that last thing and you cranked it really loud? And I was like, nope. I don't remember any of that, but I'm really glad you remember that. That's great. So it's like all this stuff, it's never going to go away, and it shouldn't. It's really it's fun, and it's it keeps me interested. And you know, it's like it's not as tweaky in certain ways. You pull it up and you like it, or you don't, and that's amazing. I love that side of it. Anyway, there's a rant. Don't know if I answered your question, there, Uncle Leon, but something like that.
No, totally. I think it's so relevant is because these things aren't binaries of, oh, well, amp versus modeler, you know. I mean, it generates clicks on YouTube. Amps are dead. Modeling is dead. Yeah. It's like, bro, like, there's still, you know, wasn't Todd Rundgren, like, still gigging with an original rack pod? I saw, like, a rig rundown where he's like, yeah, I've just always used this, you know, and it's because I see the argument of, like, oh, well, you know, how many amazing records have been recorded with like you know, the Line 6 Vento model. Like it's not even based on anything. Why would you do that? It's like, bro,
because Line it's not based on anything.
Yeah, Line 6 big bottom equals gent. You know, like literally an entire genre was invented because of that amp model. So yeah, and also you have that bias of, oh well, you know, yeah, Eric Clapton Blues Breakers, like, yeah, bro, like, because that's all there was.
That's it.
You know, you literally didn't even have. I'm sure, you know, if you look at like the history of these guys' rigs, is like Marshall had the JTM 45, and Pete Townsend used it and came back and said it's not loud enough, so they built bigger ones, and you know, it's kind of the same. I'm not saying it's the same, but there's a similar effect now. It's just sort of like almost crowdsourced, where you know. Fractal put out a new firmware and someone's complained long enough that they have a 50-watt JCM 800, not a 100-watt JCM 800. So you get a 2203 model added, and then people are like, you got to model the low input as well because Smashing Pumpkins and Malcolm Young. So then they model the low input and you're like, okay, cool. Now you've got like this sort of thing where it's almost like amp preservation as well. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Troy.
Subtopic.
Yeah, that's a kind of an interesting subtopic where, and I think that's why people get into the capture thing, where it's like, oh, I can play Ryan's Gargoyle and I don't need to get one, and it's limited because it is that just like static settings. But it's like you were saying, Troy, like, you know, if that Splawn wasn't $800, you probably wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah, because it originally came up for 16 and no one wanted it.
Yeah.
And then I just waited 6 months and it was affordable. And I was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, like other things that we're looking at on Gumtree at the moment, right? Where you're just like, yeah, in a couple of weeks, if it's still there. It's like this is how to manage your gas, people, is like you need a waiting algorithm where it's like you see it. Wait 2 weeks. If it hasn't come down, if it's sold, it's not meant to be. If it's come down by $200, then maybe start thinking about it, and then wait another week and then offer $100 less.
Let's see. I've got my eye on. All right. Here's just. I've got my eye on 3 amps at the moment, right? Where if they come down, I'll consider it. But because I just bought that Explorer, I've got to be a little bit more responsible because I still have 2 children and I don't have infinite money over here. But
they need nourishment.
VHT Pitbull Ultra Lead has been up for about a month and a half, 2 months now. About $2,000 Australian. Doesn't have the graphic EQ. Apparently that makes a difference. I don't know. There's a Sun City L1200 Mark IV for $1,500, which Michael Torin just bought one as well. And we were messaging about that the other day. So that's $1,500. Hasn't gone yet. And then there's another little Marshall that came up that is just one of the vintage ones, Studio Vintage. So that got put up yesterday for $1,200, and by the evening it was $1,000. So let's just see how that slides and what happens there. But anyway. All these things, I don't need any of this stuff, but let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens.
But it is a thing. Like hardware, it's kind of like the mixing world. It's kind of like the gaming world, right? Where, a lot of games are cross-platform now and you can play them on the existing hardware. But, playing it on a Switch on an aeroplane is different to being in your like gaming chair at home on your PC with headphones on, screaming at your mates in like co-op mode or something like that. It's the initial conditions are important with this stuff. And playing a real amp with a cab, they're a bit unruly and they're not mix ready and it's hard to do stuff on them sometimes, but having to commit to that process of like, no, I've got 6 knobs and I need to get a usable sound. So it's sort of rather than, this isn't quite happening. Maybe I'll try a different model. Click, click, click. I guess that's where people kind of get confronted with option paralysis. Outside of all of that, you sort of mentioned some music you've been working on and things like that. You've got your, shall I call it your main project? Then I'd say people who have checked out the channel and the kind of big boy chugga chugga stuff you want to tell us about that and anything else you're working on?
So this is something that you'll have heard riffs from sprinkled throughout demonstrations and introductions to videos and stuff without me acknowledging it, because what I'm working on is actually using some of the first riffs I ever wrote on an 8-string. And this is like one of those things where it was almost to the point of like, this is so outside of what I want to kind of work on right now that I almost ditched it. But it's also one of those things, it's like, if I don't get this out, I'm going to kick myself in the ass. So why not just sit down and really polish it and really make it into something that I'm proud of. And I'm pretty much there musically, on top of the sinus infection that I'm still sort of getting over. I tried tracking vocals yesterday, and it left me in this state. So that's part of the other reason I will be doing some guttural vocals and a few cleans on this one as well. I would describe it as semi-melodic, semi-technical. There's no blast beats or anything, but there's definitely some polyrhythms and things that I would consider, like if you had like your chaotic neutral or your whole alignment chart, like C drum would be on like over here and maybe this one would be over here somewhere. It's in that same kind of like plane, but it's almost an equal opposite to that. You'll hear a lot of, you can tell it's me on guitar. Let's say that much. But I'm really excited about the drum performance. I've got a drummer that I think has brought a shit ton of inspiration to this whole project, and it wouldn't have turned out half as good. I mean, my program stuff was okay, but I think a lot of people are going to be very impressed. And I think they'll be even more impressed to learn that it's a regular commenter on my channel. So big reveal.
That's awesome.
Later, yeah. That's pretty cool. So we met through the channel, and actually they asked if they wanted to work on any upcoming Cedar material, and I said yes, but not yet. I got something else to see if you'll be interested in, and yeah, I'm hoping we can continue co-writing some stuff for Cedar. That one is still very much for me. I want it to be kind of my egotistical, selfish, outlet for prog nonsense, channeling my inner John Williams wannabe and that sort of stuff. But percussion is absolutely my weakest point. So if someone can at least be a guide on that would be excellent. Let alone lay down some real drums in a home studio. That's awesome as well.
And are you still using the Typhoon for all the 8-string stuff?
I am. Yep. That is the one and only on this album. I actually never deviated from the bridge pickup, though I hope to on the upcoming Cedarham stuff again. But what I have done, though,
you got to get it out. So for anyone unfamiliar with this was like, tell us about this guitar. Ooh.
So this was my answer to not being able to find any 8-string off the shelf that I really, really liked. I've got other ones as well, extended range, extended scale length, and I've got like one with a Kaler and variation of different pickups, but I wanted something that was not like, a complete boat, but in the 27.5 to 28.5 range. I wanted something that had passives, but also had fine tuning, whatever that was. I didn't really care what the solution was. Didn't really exist outside of like custom shops that would have cost me $7,000 plus. And NOF Customs out of the Philippines actually contacted me and said they'd be willing to take a crack at it, and nailed it. They've made a couple other customer guitars with this same body shape that originated from my sketch of like, okay, I like this curve from this guitar, I'm going to steal that. I like that horn because, hopefully it'll provide some better weight distribution. I have no idea, but I'm going to take it just in case. And he turned that into something that's actually quite functional, even down to the you can tell on camera, but there's a pretty intense breakaway angle on the neck to get that Tune-O-Matic bridge to work. But this is my Meshuggah fanboy experience. It's the same one that Friedrich and now Morton uses on a couple of their guitars live. Lundgren and Mates, shall I say anything else about that? Floyd Rose locking nut and some locking tuners that really don't even need it. But this thing, what's really cool is they added this really funky capacitor value, and I'm not sure if it's wired in parallel or if it's just like a different wiring scheme. I haven't opened it up, but it gets this really like ducky, quacky thing going on. I don't know if it's like a really steep filter, but my solo sound a lot in this upcoming project is actually this just rolled off all the way on the bridge pickup. So you'll get to hear that. It's kind of a cool, like almost Holdsworthy no pick attack kind of deal. So that's a real fun thing to cheat with. It's got push pull as well for coil splitting, but I don't use that for this particular thing. But yeah, I've got a matching bass coming hopefully within the next couple of months. Yeah, I'll be happy to reveal that. In the meantime, I recorded with like a Spectre Performer because it sounded great. It's a little bit different than the LTD knockoff that I used in the previous production. I like both of them, but they are very different instruments. And this one kind of served that just kind of raw 90s tractor kind of bass sound that I was going for. Where especially when I'm playing an F standard, they're on the same octave a lot of the time, so kind of needed that separation. So that's what's in the pipeline. Hopefully it will be out in the next half year. I said that like a year ago and the year before that, so no promises, but I need it out of my life.
I'm very, very familiar with these kind of things, tracking things in 2018 and putting them out, 6 or 7 years later. So it's just the world we live in. I feel like when you're in, when you're like 18 or 19, so much of your self-worth and, sense of self gets attached to this idea that you should put music out. And like in reality, the proliferation of amazing technology that makes it easy for anyone to just kind of put out their ideas makes you realize like, hey, lots of people have this skill and lots of people, think and feel things and can communicate it in music. So,
and they're way better players than I am. What's the point?
But it's sort of for someone like yourself, like you've cultivated a community online, right, with what you do. So it's kind of nice that if people watch your videos on pedals or amps, that they can actually listen to they can listen to music that you like making. That's what I like about music now. Is it's like, well, you don't have to shoehorn stuff into a particular format or form factor just to get people to listen to it. It's sort of like you can just put it out, and if people want to find it or you want to promote it to people, you can do that as well. If you just want to use it as an exercise in like getting stuff done and only you and the person mixing it get a kick out of it, that's also kind of fine as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think that, and it's kind of like, I think this, for me, a big motivating factor in actually seeing this through is like, this is kind of a checkbox on the resume to show like, okay, all this stuff I've been talking about, you know, especially since Cedrum, when I'm talking about the real amplifiers and how you have to treat those in a real mix, all the stuff I've been talking about when it comes to, you know, balancing saturation and compression, like here it is. Here's like case study number 1 for that. And yeah, the plan is to kind of have like a basically month-long torrent of content to you know, go over the various dialing in of guitars and the mix and stuff to show like, A, you don't need, you know, a $10,000 home studio to get this sound, but B, to show that, you know, the stuff that I've talked about previously, you know, you have to keep that in mind when you're actually making music if you want to sound halfway unique. And I don't necessarily know that I do, but, you know, it's ultimately to show that what we have gone over is not in vain. It's not just like circle jerking for, oh, this distortion sounds so amazing. It's like, no, I'm actually trying to, you know, use this to be in service of the music, of the overall experience you get out of it. So yeah, I hope that's what comes out of it. And if not, that's fine too. At least I can move on to the next thing.
Yeah. So I think so much of it is like, I've had these stupid riffs in my head since I was 16. If I just commit them and I put them out, maybe they won't annoy me so much.
Exactly.
While we're getting short on time, what I would like to ask is twofold. Out of everything you've kind of put out, either musically or on your channel, like 2 or 3 things you feel like you're sort of the most proud of, or like you really feel like you nailed those kind of capstone things. And for the YouTube channel, like what you've sort of mentioned some content tied around the music, but where are you going with that? And where would you like to see your channel kind of go in, say, like the next couple of years with what you're doing? What videos haven't you done, and what do you see yourself doing?
So for the past couple years, I feel like I've really been drawn to this almost like gear documentary style thing where I found myself less and less convinced and finding less enjoyment in making videos that are like, here's the 10 minutes about this thing. Now let's talk about 10 more minutes about this functionality of this thing. Let's just put it all in one place, you know, and if everybody doesn't watch the whole thing, that's fine. I like this idea of making almost like this encyclopedia of, maybe it's certainly not everything there is to know about it, but it should be enough to get you started at the very least.
Encyclopedia Riftanica.
We need a stupid animated intro for that. I'm really, really, I think, proudest of the last thing I put out with the giant fractal Line 6 Kemper shootout, but all that stemmed in those individual reviews on those devices with the Podgo and the Kemper, and I felt like I learned more of what I wanted to do and more about kind of the 80 for 20, if you will, of like, here's the most value I can get in the shortest amount of time about what I can talk about and what I can show. And as insane as it sounds to say, like, oh, you know, you get a lot of information out of 6 hours worth of videos. You actually do, because you don't see all the stuff that, you know, I'm mumbling to myself in the shower, and I'm like, oh no, that's bad. Don't talk about that. Let's talk about something more high value. So I'm pretty happy with the way that series has grown and just kind of crescendoed into something that I've been wanting to make for, you know, the entire lifetime of this YouTube channel, and I couldn't have done it without, you know, people supporting us. So I really, really appreciate that. Going forward, I would consider the release of this upcoming thing to be kind of like the close of a Marvel phase, if you will, where it's like this kind of ties everything together, or at least, you know, it's a nice bookend to some of the things that I've been doing. Not to say I'm, going to quit doing certain series. You're going to probably still see more tone engineers. You're probably going to still see me, ranting at the camera about when something pisses me off. But going forward, I kind of want to look at the things that like I have to get done. It's not those, okay, well, let me structure my YouTube channel so I get this type of video every 5 videos, play the algorithm, piss on that from this point forward. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, even if it takes me 3 months and I have to, buy all the gear and then sell it at the end to be able to afford the next video. I like these big projects like the Tone Engineer. I'm really liked how that Valve State video turned out, and it's almost cheating because it's just such a great amp that it doesn't even matter. Like there's hardly any skill involved.
I mean, like the Valve State one, and then especially like the Dimebag one. To me, they were like incredibly interesting because it's just not a world I really live in. Obviously, like I like to listen to Pantera like everyone else, but it's all out there, right? But it feels like esoteric knowledge as well. It's like we know he used this stuff, but then putting it all together.
Well, there's so much misinformation too. Like I can't tell you how much stuff you dive through, especially with like Chuck's gear, where it's like, well, I think he used that. No, the first album was definitely a 2203 with a distortion plus, like the DS1 up front. No, it wasn't. Try that. That's not it, boss. So there's some things that you just have to sort through, and it is frustrating when you make a video and you're like, I'm pretty sure it was this, but take this with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, I'm happy enough as long as I can show like within this range of gear, can you get that thing? But yeah, I definitely want to do more of that kind of video, and actually just purchased a couple pedals for a inspired by rig for the next Valve State thing, so that probably will take some time to track, but I look forward to that. Super long term, I would love to have like every pedal head idea out there. I'd love to have all of these amp review things. There's a couple angles I could think of using more popular gear that I've not, purchased. But ultimately, my goal is to work to a point where I'm irrelevant, where I've done everything that I want to do, and I could just be a Keith Merrow and just be like, okay, I'm going to throw a piece of music up every 2 years, not completely ditch YouTube in that sense. But I do want to get to the point where it's not a grind, and I don't feel like it has been for me for some time. I've definitely stepped away and said, I'm gonna work on this stuff when I really feel like it and enjoy other parts of life. What you do is on a whole other level, and I respect the hell out of it, but I can't do it anymore. It is not something that I think I can continue doing to that extent, and still want to do this as a hobby. So long term, yeah, I hope I get through my basically like top 50 ideas or 50 videos that I want to make and piss off more or less. But I'm sure there'll be another 50 ideas afterwards once I get 25 into the first 50. Yep. So it's a never ending thing.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, on that note, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I feel like we could speak for many, many more hours, and we should probably do this again very, very soon. Troy, totally. Any parting thoughts, wisdom you'd like to impart on the Gear Podcast audience?
Do you lick it a good day? Sorry.
That's it. That's a perfect ending.
Yep.
Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Go and subscribe to Ryan's channel, Plague Scythe Studios, and check out some of his music with CD-ROM. And we will see you for the next episode of The Gear Podcast.
Peace out, everyone.